Welcome to O'Talkin' with Dave. Here's Dave.
Hey, how we doing out there? I hope you are doing well. I am top shelf myself. Yep, it's a ever-changing world out there. I like to let things go, but sometimes when something hops on my mind, I have to. I don't usually talk about it as much as I have questions. And one of my questions today is, what happened to all the men? Yeah, they're still out there. I get it. But there seems to be a lower percentage of real men. What is a real man? We'll talk about it. But it's around the demasculinization. Demasculinization. 7 syllables. It's not even past noon, and I'm throwing out 7-syllable words that I made up. And I'll tell you what sparked this. I've noticed it a bit, but I was on a plane recently. Shocker! I was on a plane recently, and there's a couple beside me, Southwest, the Airbus, couple beside me, and there was a couple in front of them going to Vegas, and you could tell, oh, they were so excited. So excited. Well, after a little bit, we get up into the air. They kept talking between the seats. After, we get up past 10,000 feet, and the ladies decide, we want to sit with each other, and you guys sit with each other. Lucky me, I got to sit by the guys. So they're back there, they're getting all settled in. They got fanny packs and man purses, and anyway, they're talking, and the girls keep telling the guys beside me what to do. Don't forget this. Did you make sure about this? Please do this. Yeah. You always forget this. Don't forget it this time. And then the guys, they were settled in, but they were talking. And I usually have the AirPods in, but I was about to go to the restroom. And so I took them out, and I was going to prepare to go up there, and I could hear some of the conversation. And, these weren't, let's just say I had plenty of room on my aisle when they sat down. And then, they were talking in deep conversation about their double alkaline water and how they didn't have their usual brand in the airport and they had to pour it out. They were not aware of this. And so they're having to drink water that they bought in the airport, which was not their normal double alkaline triple Suflex Mofungo good for you water. This was a problem. And so I'm thinking, I got to go to the bathroom. So I go to the bathroom. I come back and I sit down, and they're still in deep discussion. But this time they were talking about their moisturizing regimens. Now, these are 2 heterosexual men. These are their wives in front. The wives made it clear who belonged to who. And I'm thinking, well, what is going on? And then every now and then, one of the women would just throw something between the seats. It could be a wrapper of some sort or an empty water bottle. It's just back to these guys, and they would get it and put it in its place and taking care of business, which is fine. I remember my dad used to always hand stuff over to my mom when he was driving, and she would take care of it and he would drive, and but it just hit me. It's like I'm sitting by 2 girls. So I'm going to talk about the ever decreasing degree of masculinity as a percentage among men. Now understand, this is going to piss some people off. I am not talking about gay men. No. As a matter of fact, my gay men friends would kick your ass. They would definitely take care of these 2. No, I'm not talking about that at all. No, I'm focusing on heterosexual men and their ever increasing lack of masculinity. Not gay men, not trans, not any of that. So don't get your panties in a wad. I'm just talking about us heterosexual guys. If that's not going to interest you, I get it. But I'm more dealing with that smarmy, lowbrow, afraid of their wife's shadow, keyboard warrior, whose hands are softer than who, like the belly of a little catfish, virtue signaling, Karen marrying, spritzer drinking, new American male. So understand, I at no point am I, and this is key. I have found, we have data. About half of the people listening to these podcasts are women. It's almost 50-50. I am not blaming women or degrading women here. I'm blaming the men. I am blaming the men. And it's not the end of the world. It's just an observation. You know what? I think I've got some information, but just personally, I think a clear sign of when it really started going bad recently is the man bun. I mean, come on. What is up with that? At first, it was different and everything, but then it got to the point to where, come on. And it's not because I can't have a man bun. I could grow a man bun. I mean, it'd have to be real low in the back. You'd have to ball up my skullet. Still, man bun. I hope that's going away. Can we get rid of those guys out there? I know you're more manly than me, but put your hair down. Come on. And also, I am not a spokesperson for all things masculine. I mean, yeah, I could work out more. Have I been fit in my life? Yes. But I am not the poster child for this. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with non-masculine men. I will talk to how it could have a negative impact on us. I'll do that. And then also, I'm going to refer to some some nuances in marriages with a less than masculine man, to whatever degree. My marriage is not perfect. I'll tell you this, no marriage is perfect. I hate it when people say that, and I just said it myself. But I am breaking all my rules. Click. However, my marriage, we've been around 37 years. We dated a long time before that. It is truly, and it may take 37 years to get here, it is a cooperative. Yeah, we're equal. Hey, we're equal. But also, she does what she wants, and I do what I want. Most of the time, we kind of like doing that stuff together. But it's never who wears the pants in the family. I looked up, sometimes somebody's got to step up, man up, and make a decision. A lot of times that's over where we're going to eat tonight. The big weighty decisions here. Man up. I love words and sayings, and I've got a whole new mutton part 2 coming up. But the term man up, I said that, and I looked it up, and that actually started from like military. At some point we'll do this, and at this juncture, I need, man up for this. I need a man to come up and do this still, and we assign all that stuff. So it was really, and then it got to the point where it was considered toughen up. Come on, man up, man. And which is totally, if you can't say manhole cover, you definitely can't say man up. But it came from the military, and then over time it became derogatory to say man up. Well, I'm old-fashioned enough to where there's some roles I think men serve ahead of women. Not that they're better. No. Not that women aren't capable. Not at all. But sometimes, you got to man up. The new version, a lot of times it's if they don't want to do their role, you know how brutal men can be. Come on, grow a pair or something like that. And then along comes the women's version of this. Put on your big girl panties. That's the big girl. That's the girl version of man up. So can we not just relax and laugh at this stuff instead of getting upset? So I have these thoughts, And I'm okay if you're not, if you're a heterosexual feminine dude, hey, more power to you. I'm just seeing a growing number of demasculated men. And so I dug in, and I'm right. Masculinity has been on the downswing since the 80s. And he really started before then, but it started in the mid 80s. But I look at some, I thought, okay, why is this happening? Let's get into some science. Over the last 40 years, we'll say 1980 to 2020. What is happening? And so I went to the Google machine, dug in pretty deep to get past all the woke stuff, which is difficult to do. And they say one reason is because of lower testosterone levels. Lower testosterone levels. I mean, there's medical journals that talk about it, that in the 2000s, testosterone levels are much lower than the 1980s among men. I mean, I don't think that can be exaggerated. And just in the general population of men, it's gone down drastically. And people right now, men in their 40s, they're up to 20% less testosterone. They're producing less. Men in their 50s and 60s, 30%. And you're over 70, it's 50% of your testosterone. Well, that's really not the group we're talking about here. I'm talking about these guys beside me were in their 30s. And I see it more and more, these 30s and early 40s. But it's beginning to happen. That's a contributing factor. But I don't think that's the problem here. Or I don't think that is the cause here. Because low testosterone, I mean, maybe it affects your sex drive. It makes you tired. You don't have as much get up and go. But it's not going to make me wear pastels and Birkenstocks and hold my wife's purse. That's not what I'm talking about. There's a couple of other factors, though. There's a decline in manual labor jobs. And most traditionally, and I don't mean that in a bad way, traditionally is a good thing. Traditional is what it is. But traditionally, men did more of the manual labor jobs. Absolutely. You think of machinists, plumbers, bricklayers, construction, factory working, where it was a lot more heavy lifting, things like that. It's not as prevalent anymore, not at all. Partly because technology. You look around, you got robots that do a lot of this work. You have, even in the construction area, technology and in the equipment and in the materials, it's changed a lot. You got a lot more white collar jobs, and those men that are less masculine, they'll migrate to that. So that's the way. I mean, the education, they had rather do that, and I don't blame them. I'm that guy. So a lot less manual labor, which will come up again in a minute. Also at home, there's a big changes in the dynamics at home. It's a lot more. If you think back, I remember 50s and 60s. The man does the work, the woman stays home and cleans the house and takes care of the kids and does the cooking. That's kind of the way it was with my parents. I was born in the 60s. That's the way it was then. It's accepted then. There's changes in those dynamics now. Most of the time, the mom and the dad are both working. They both have jobs, so they have to share the duties. All right. Well, in 1982, 43% of fathers lived apart from their children, at least part time. And now in 22, meaning they'd go to work. They went to work. You get up, dad goes to work, works all day, comes home. Now there are more stay-at-home dads. They participate in the child care. And by stay-at-home, I don't mean they don't have a job. I mean they work from home. So you're around the kids more. You're around the laundry and the dishes and the things that need to happen. So those roles evolved to where men are sharing more in that. And hey, I think it's great. Women love it, and I don't blame them. Women are out working hard too, so I get it. But that's part of the change in the household dynamic. And I don't know if that leads to the next one or not, but there is an obvious change in fashion and grooming trends for men. Man, I remember just the ruggedness of the 70s and the 80s, early 80s for men. They things that they do now would be considered very feminine, but just skin care, like my buddies on the plane, hair products. It's the rise of the metrosexual and all that appearance stuff. Men getting manis petties, which I hear is wonderful. All of that, you'd never had that, in late 70s, early 80s. I mean, sometimes it just makes, can I get a Marlboro man out here? That rugged cowboy, doesn't talk a lot. Even Clint Eastwood back in the day, the man who came in, didn't say much. He'd smoke a rugged cigar and spit a lot. How about that? But that whole fashion and grooming trends, that's come about. And then just, I think one of the bigger things, and I hear it in the tone of voice of a percentage of the less masculine American male, is around the emotions. They speak a little softer. They don't talk as loud. It's part of that emotional expression. They share their feelings more, which is good. It's good. Masculinity back in the day had discouraged that. No, you be tough. You be quiet. Man up. That kind of thing. Where now and I think part of it is it's a softening, which to some degree is good. It is. But there's more around feelings, going to therapy, mental health, mental well-being, and that is good. I think by saying you're doing that now didn't mean that mental health, well-being wasn't important back in the day. You just found a way. Some of it is hilarious to hear two grown, masculine Marlboro men. They don't talk about their feelings, but they do things to work through it. And I'm not saying one way's better than the other. What I am saying is that is part of this migration. So even you look at the sexiest men alive, look at the difference there. I mean, they started doing that in mid-'80s, I believe. So if you go back a little further, you have people like Tom Selleck and Burt Reynolds, and then you have Mel Gibson back when he was, he was hot before all of the controversy. And then it got a little easier with like Mark Harmon and Harry Hamlin, and you can look at the whole list. The whole idea back then of what is sexy, you're talking about somebody more masculine, more rugged. Physical appearance was very important, but also these people were the strong, silent type to some degree. And then you fast forward and you can look as the years go on, and it will be obvious that they're going for something different. It's, that physical toughness or that stoic personality, less important. And then you get to people in like 2020, like Michael B. Jordan. Now he wasn't a loudmouth. He still had some stoicness to him. But, in physical presence, you look at him back in, 2 years before, they bulked him up for a couple of movies, but it's more on that emotional depth. And then, it's not just his roles, but his activism, how kind and empathy. So it's an image of, strong physique, and he's got charisma, but also he cares about social justice and things like that. John Legend in 2019. Nothing against John Legend. Oh, just so talented. Got a great voice and can play the piano. But that's not what in 1980 would have been thought of as manly. I don't think so. And Idris Elba, you notice early on, and maybe, everybody's got what they like, but early on it was a bunch of white dudes. Now you've got, people of color coming in. And the whole deal is now it's more emotional intelligence and diversity and masculinity. Meaning, hey, we need a broader representation. And the whole thing is packaging. And I do not believe anything you hear in the media. And I don't believe these magazines. I remember we used to I have two older sisters, and they would, watch different things with the New York fashion and all that. They walk down the runway. Nobody's wearing that crap. What are you kidding me? You wear that in Sheffield, Alabama? you're going to be laughed out of town. But that's what, that portrayed. Here's the new. Here's pushing the limitations. I don't know, but it's the whole media, that softer side. And they've almost pushed, that's what men are like now, and this is how you need to be. So I think that's part of it. I really do. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Make a choice. But there are key differences now, and it will continue to evolve. And, more on that in a minute. But let's talk about what's causing it. I mean, you got the influence in all this, but, there is a certain percentage of men that are becoming heterosexual men, don't get off track here, that are less masculine. And so some people blame the feminist movement. The feminist movement. Do you realize that's in the 60s and 70s? That's the whole, what the feminist movement was then and what it is now, so different. So different. Back then it's equal rights, and, they're burning their bras and they're doing all this stuff to be, to get your attention, and nothing wrong with that in my opinion. But, equal rights. You think of that time, 60s and 70s, it was a big problem. Big problem. Voting rights, equal pay, representation in the workforce, representation. Now it's evolved into, quite frankly, a lot of it is just, what's not equal now, let's focus on that and quit thinking about the way it was. Let's work on new stuff. But I don't think that's the problem. I don't think that's what emasculated men. I don't buy it. Just because a woman is more outspoken and will say what she wants and is not satisfied and wants more, that doesn't mean a man has to become a wuss. I don't think that's really on my section of this. Economic shifts. We talked earlier about manufacturing. So in the 70s and 80s, it changed a lot. It changed a ton. Factory work and manual labor, like we said, that even changed. Things were more automated. Just some of the increases in technology, nothing like now. We're not talking AI and computers and all that. We're just talking about a shift which, it reduced the number of blue-collar jobs. Men took either white-collar jobs or did something else. Sales. I'm a sales guy, but I am less manly than a guy pounding a hammer somewhere. I'll tell you that right now. On the appearance, I'm just as masculine, but on the outside you don't see that. Well, some people, if they don't have that as a daily thing, they're going to become, I'll say, softer. The shifts in what they do changes on how they age and they evolve. I believe it. The whole family structure, we talked about that earlier. I believe that is a cause. I don't think you can underestimate the degree to which the media affects this. I mean, just look at the anchormen on the news. from Walter Cronkite, kind of a gruff, to now they spend more time in makeup than they. It's a big production. Part of it is it's media and it's technology and it's production value. But now to be a man on a news show, you have to be a spokesmodel. Fashion's so important. They start telling, even on game shows, so and so's clothes have been sponsored by, and it's so different, but it affects you. How you look is so much more important. Hey, I like to look nice. I got a nice hat and a cool, I don't know what this shirt is. I want to look nice, but I'm not caught up in it so much. A lot of it, education. From the 90s on, just educating people around social issues. As it goes on, and feminist movement moved on to other things, but I think a lot of this started with the 24-hour news cycle, and that happened in the 80s, and it grew, and it grew. But it's constant. It's constantly something hitting you with news, with things to be upset about, with things that you need to change, and the ads. Oh my goodness, they're all what we watch. It's either all old people, ED, or new stuff for making you not stink all over your body. By the way, there's some crazy stuff out there. Mando, they call it Mando. Is that not sexist? Come on. But then you look at just the hygiene products and all that. It's over the top, and men are in these ads. So that's part of it. It's capitalism. And I think it's great. The capitalism, they got to sell stuff too. Then the one thing that's got to me a little bit is gender neutrality and fluidity. What? So part of that is, and again, I'm talking about heterosexual male, but gender identity and their expressions. Younger generations, it was a simpler time, and I don't opine for the simpler time. No, I think with all the media and what's acceptable, and maybe should you question your gender? Should you, it puts thoughts in people's head, and I think it creates confusion. And masculine men aren't going to act confused, where someone who's in touch with their feelings, less masculine, maybe they're going to dive into that more and be confused. And that's why I feel sorry for people that are in that way, because we all find our way, but that affects some of the masculinity. It's one of the things, to go back to the changing in roles. When you look at it, I learned, right or wrong, I learned how a man acts primarily from my dad. How he treated my mom. He's one of those ones that goes to work at 8 in the morning. He left at 7:30. He was home, got off at 4. He was home by 4:30. You can count on it. We eat dinner at 5 every day. Lunchbox, go in. He comes home. He takes a shower because he smelled like a factory when he got home. He worked at Reynolds Aluminum for 36 years, Lister Hill, Alabama. Giddy up. But what you see is in 1980, 40 to 45% of the men were in blue-collar roles. So just a stereotype, they get up, they go to work, they come home, put the lunchbox down. That's what they did. You did yard work in the afternoons or on the weekends or whatever you had to do. You do stuff with the family, you do this. But Dad was gone and he was working during those times. So 40 to 45%. In 2020, it's 20 to 25% in blue-collar roles. Now, this is just fathers. This is not women. I realize women are there, but we're not talking about women. And so think about that. That's a lot less people to see that role. There's a lot fewer. I wonder how many of that 20 to 25% of the blue-collar jobs held by men are still two parents in the family. they coming home to kids, or is the marriage didn't work out, so it's just them. So even fewer kids are fewer young men are seeing their dads in that role, and that's where I got a lot of it. I mean, Dad would come in. Full disclosure, when I was a kid, I hung around with my mom a lot. Ran the neighborhoods. I did all that. One of my favorite shows was The Galloping Gourmet. Graham Kerr is his name, and man, I don't think he was gay, but he wasn't real masculine, I'll say that. And he would cook and he would do this and he'd get his dish and then he's always behind. He'd run over to the table, and I guess that's where the galloping come in, and he would eat it, and it was great. I love cooking. I still do. But that was one of my favorite shows. And my dad would come home with his lunchbox, and I would talk about what the Galloping Gourmet did that day. And I know he was thinking, I've got to get my boy out. Get him in the dirt. Yeah, I get it. But you see, just in my situation, if I didn't have that example of what a man was, or stereotypical man, okay, I might have been different. And there's nothing wrong with what I'm saying today. Yet, I'll get to it. I mean, I'll get to why this may not be the best situation. But you're used to seeing that drop off. Well, it's because you don't see as much of these stereotypical rugged men. Yeah. So there's been a lot of things like in the last 30 years. We've talked about the emotional side of things, showing your vulnerability as a man, and I believe in it. I believe that's one of my power boosters. Show some vulnerability. That's fine, but you don't have to break down and weep every day when Oprah's on. Oprah hasn't been on in a while, but and then I don't mean to be a hypocrite. I got a soft side. Tom Rinaldi on Saturday mornings when I'm watching Game Day, and he comes with these human interest stories, and I'm glad he's not on ESPN anymore. He tore me up every Saturday. So, but that's not, it's not a pat on the back and all right, okay, now let's go watch a baseball game, or let's go in the garage and work on a project. No, tell me more. How do you feel? And hey, however you feel about that's fine. And then we talked about the grooming and appearance. Another one is child care responsibilities. A lot of men, they take care of their kids too. There's a lot of women work outside the home and men work inside the home, and it's kind of a reversal of roles. But if you're around kids a lot, your own kids especially, it's going to affect you more than if it's not. And by affect you, I mean you're going to have a softer side. Kids are going to want their way, and you either give in to them and have a little peace, or you stand still and deal with the kicking and screaming until they get what works and what doesn't. But also, you get that tender side. They say these things that break you down, and it's special moments. Well, that pulls in the softer side. If you're doing that more than pounding on a steel beam, well, it's just gonna have effect on you. So I think that's another contributor to this, and it's a great thing. Another thing that's been seen is, at one point, women made doctor's appointments for the men. This is happening. Can you make me a doctor appointment? But this was the last resort. This is like me and my wife. I don't go to the doctor. I should, but I don't. Well, we're finding in the last 30 years, primarily the last 10 to 15, men are making their own appointments. They're going to doctors more. Men of all ages. They're more likely to have a regular dentist appointment and hygiene. They don't just have a general doctor. Now, it's more likely for a man to have all of the doctors. I have a dermatologist. I have a general medicine. I have maybe a holistic guy. They're going to chiropractors more. They're doing all this stuff. So it's about self-care and wellness. Nothing wrong with that. But that is another indication. I said, but that is another indication that men are taking on more of that traditionally female role. But that's one part of it. The other part is they're seeking care. Where in the past, let's just rub on it and rub some dirt on it and we'll get better. If it's still hurting in 2 weeks, I might, think about it. And then the emotional side. More men have therapists. More men are going to consistent therapy, members of focus groups, which is fantastic. They're initializing, couples counseling, all this stuff. And they're also using therapy as a prophylactic treatment, meaning I need to get in touch with myself before something happens. This is, I've heard a lot about this, but that approach of my mind is right, but I want to keep it right. So I need to talk about this stuff. Nothing wrong with it. That didn't used to happen. So here's the thing. Women, when asked, most women, they prefer a more masculine man. 60 to 65% of women, when surveyed, when they talk about the traits of men, they prefer a more masculine man, especially for short-term relationships. But then the ideal husband has more masculine traits. Interesting. Some of it is, surveys are always going to show mixed results. But when they surveyed women, it's between 55 and 70 prefer masculine features when choosing mates. So long term. All right. 60 to 70 prefer a more traditional masculine man. That's in Western cultures. Let's make sure we say that. And so they still prefer that, yet men are becoming less masculine as a percentage. So what are some biological factors of this? So, and some of this evolutionary stuff, but masculine traits signal a healthier and a more reproductive person. And when people are looking for a mate, okay, that's what you're thinking about. And we're talking about first, we'll say first or second, or people in childbearing years. Some of that, that the strong jawline, you got a deeper voice. Maybe, hey, if you're masculine built, that's great. Unfortunately, I've been married my whole life, but back in the day, dad bods weren't popular. I got old dad bods now. But then, if you're physically fit, that's great. But that rugged, dominant behavior type thing, I can protect you. And that's great. I can protect you. Worst comes to worst, I can protect you and the kids and support for you and all that. That's a thing. And then you have the perception of strength. How do you carry yourself? Again, the deep voice, more masculine men, caretakers, providers, alpha male types. Some, in some variation of this, it'd be the girls that like the bad boys, instead of that big mesh or whatever, it's got the tattoos and now everybody has tattoos, but it's considered the bad boy. Seems like the good girls are always drawn to the bad boys. Yeah, I don't know what that is. But again, that's the masculine side. You don't usually have effeminate bad boys. I guess they're out there. But also just, I think for females or males or anybody, confidence, that's sexy. That's sexy. And it's, there's a lot of different things I could talk about it, but the traditional gender roles, people wanting to go back to that. I think you get through what you get through in your 20s or high school into college, and then when you're ready to settle down, okay, what does that mean, first of all? And then a lot of times you go back to what you know, and it's a more traditional role, and that includes a more masculine man. So there's a lot of nuances there. But I'll say this. I think not only the man bun, but the rise in Karens, stay with me, the rise in Karens in not only their actions, but their percentage of the population increased as the lower masculinity in men. Think about it. I think we can all agree Karen behavior is less than desirable. Well, back when men weren't scared of their wives, they'd have cut that crap out quick. What? Sit down. Don't talk to the neighbors that way. Come on. They're gonna get us back. So I almost said something. No, don't do that. Just calm down. Or the better way to do it is, look, what's bothering you? Let's get to the bottom of that, and let's just calm down. It's okay. It's okay that there's a pine cone in the neighbor's yard. Give them a chance to pick it up. Don't go over screaming or calling the HOA. That wouldn't happen with a strong masculine presence. It would have corrected that and relax. And ladies, I'm not blaming you. The men got weaker and didn't control all that ridiculousness or didn't influence it. There are no Karens listening right now, so I'm not upset about offending somebody. Karens do not like Dave. Ugh. But there's several reasons why a disturbing trend is that men are getting married later. Now that's disturbing. Now that's how this affects Dave a little bit and you. Men are getting married later. So usually that means they're having children later. And we're talking first marriages here. And so, what's causing that? And a lot of it is men have taken on a different role, not traditional roles. Traditionally, and I'll give you some stats in a minute, but which is, why are men getting married later? A lot of it's economic uncertainty. They're focused more on their career. The percentage of men aren't job hopping as much as they were. They're focused on their career. A lot of people think, okay, I'm going to get that squared away. They're thinking logically. I'm going to do these things before, I do something like that. Yeah. And two, women are focused on their career. So now you got two different careers. There's a lot more to think about. My wife and I, we were sweethearts since early age in high school. And so what you did in my time, that was in the early 80s, mid 80s, you got out of school, you got married, you had kids. That's the ideal order. And that's what we did. That's what everybody did. We were the first to get married, and then everybody else got married, and then we were first to have kids, and everybody else started having kids. But that's what you did. Career? Well, my goodness, when you're 22 and got two kids, there's not a lot of career going on for you as a woman. And as a man, well, you just got to do whatever you can to put food on the table and take care of your family. Now it's a lot different. There's so many different options for people. So that's it. Economic uncertainty, career focus. Then just a changing expectations. You were expected to do this. You get a job. You work for 36 years at that job. You support your wife and kids. Yeah, and the wife, they did, as time went on, they would have different versions of that. Now, socially, it's not just men that gauge themselves by their career. Women also. You've got strong women out there. That's the good part of the feminist movement. They built strong women. But back in the day, it was opposite. So now people are getting married later because they're getting their perceived social expectation of what they should do. They're checking some boxes there. Nothing wrong with that. It's just causing people to get married later. And then freedom. Have that freedom. A lot of people see their parents and their friends parents get married and they're tied down. They can't do what they used to do. They can't do what they want to do. And marriage is not bad. It's fantastic. But you don't have the freedom to do that stuff. My responsibilities were great and I loved them, but I couldn't do some of the things I wanted to do. It's a trade-off. People aren't taking that path as much. They want their freedom, and I get it. Also, just skepticism about marriage. Well, I've heard a lot on this, talking about make a case for a 30-year-old man to get married or to seek someone. Let's say doesn't have a girlfriend, but to go out and find a woman and marry them. Make a case for that. I can make a great case for it. But the case against it's pretty strong too. You're 30 years old. Say you're 8 years into a job. You're really starting to put into for that 401k. Oh, that's great. Okay, so you start to find a wife in 2 or 3 years, you get married, we'll say. Okay, well, now you're both 10, 12 years into your career. You have a kid. Okay, now you're mid to late 30s. Oh, you're really building up something. You got offspring. And then something goes wrong. It doesn't work out. She takes half of everything. She keeps everything she's got. She takes half of what she's got and the kids. That is a more prevalent story in men's minds. It's a horrible story. And there's ways to overcome that, people. But it happens a lot. And so, what's the case? Skepticism about marriage. Roles in the marriage. How is this going to be? I would say some people are picky. They get less picky, but the less picky they are, these are the times you get in. The divorce rate's going down. I don't care what you hear. They say the divorce rate is 66%. Okay, 2/3 of all marriages fail. A big percentage of that 2/3 of all marriages fail are second and third marriages. A lot of people are, they're not committed to the relationship, so it's an easy out. Let's get a divorce. And a lot of times they get a divorce, and most are initiated by women. And so it's really jaded them inside of it. The divorce rate is less than 50% now. It's less than it's been in, 30 years. They don't like to say that. I don't know who they are, but they don't like to say that. And then just a whole shift in gender roles. This is why people are getting married later. And by that, I mean just the traditional roles are not there. Women are better off financially. A lot of times men don't want to get into a relationship or marry someone where the woman makes more money. I get it. I mean, this is all foreign to me because my path was different. My path was not better, just different. And then just that standard, maintaining that standard with all the social pressures. It's a lot of pressure on men and women, but it's why men are getting married later. Here's some stats. Let me give to you. Well, before I go to the stats on marriage, a lot of times you get married when you're having a lot of sex, and it's great. Men are changing, and I guess you could call it masculinity. Men are having a lot less sex. Oh, man, that sounded blunt. That should have been the name of the podcast. Men are having a lot less sex. But 20% of married men are saying they're in a sexless marriage. Okay, well, there's another reason not to necessarily get married. There's all kinds of jokes about that. The whole beans thing. The first year of marriage, every time you have sex, put a bean in a jar or jug, a thimble, whatever. And then after that first year, every time you have sex, take a bean out and you'll never empty the jar. Some stuff like that. But that's not just your age as far as sexual activity, but it naturally happens that way. Like men in their 40s and 50s, sexually, they're a lot less sexually active, but it's still only in that 10 to 15% range. I mean, of all marriages, it's still lower than it used to be. And get this, I just saw this the other day. 50% of single men now haven't had sex in a year. So you may believe it, you may not. But think about it, what they're doing. There's virtual reality, gaming, all of these things. And I'm not talking about the sex games and the sexual virtual reality, but they've got other things to do. They've got their career. I can go out and deal with all this and go out and fight in all the clubs to find to isolate one and separate them from the herd, or I can just put these goggles on and be anywhere I want. People are doing that more, and it's not just low T and ED and all these horrible things I'm seeing on these commercials. The emotional intelligence stuff. A lot are just withdrawing. It's too much work to feel. It's too much work to work through all of this stuff. I'm just going to go home and escape. And I can. All the online stuff. I don't have to be face to face. Hey, I can cruise for chicks right here on, whatever.com. And that's causing guys to get married later. So it's a lot of these are facts. It's happening. And it's part of the demasculization. And you're thinking, well, Dave, why do you care, man? You're married. You're a good-looking guy. Stop it. Why do you care so much? Well, how does it bother you if somebody's less masculine? Well, all in all, it doesn't. I just like people. I think it was funny. I was laughing at those guys in a good way, not just a mocking way. Not just a mocking way. But think about it. You got guys getting married later. Well, they're having kids later. And they're having fewer kids. There's a lot more only children out there. A lot fewer kids. And our population is aging. So you got fewer kids born to older parents, which has a lot of challenges on its own. The burden to the system, Social Security. I mean, I'm not going to live off Social Security, but it's there. But that's also the social services type thing. Having fewer kids later, it's going to catch up economically. And that's a problem. Plus, there is a huge benefit to engaging with people and not computer screens. I say that as you're listening through technology. The joy that you have from good, solid relationships. I don't think it can be measured. But also people, when they delay all this stuff, they may hit a financial milestone, but psychologically it's hurting them because they're not fulfilled, which is a never-ending, it perpetuates itself, this mental health challenge. And it's good for my business because people are stressed. They're confused. They need help with their productivity. I'm your guy, but I don't see these people as happy. You've got it, but they seem to be more stressed, more worried, trying to please someone else rather than man up and take care of yourself too. You're not at the beck and call of everybody else, and that's what I see. That's what I see a lot of. Average age of a woman's first marriage in 1980, 22. We were right there. Now the average age of first marriage is 28 of a woman. Get this. The average age of a man's first marriage right now is in 1980 was 24. This blew me away. The average age of a man's first marriage in 2020 was 30. Is that crazy? And this is figuring everywhere. This is not your hometown. This is across the country. And then the average age of a woman having a first baby in 1980 was 24. The average age now is closer to 30 for the first child. So it's pushing everything away. When you get married and have a kid, there's a 50-50 chance that it's going to make it or not. We'll just say it. But that's where all these other things come in. Having a good support group, being picky, knowing the things that are important. Don't rush into anything, all of that stuff. And I am not in all of this. I'm not saying you have to get married. I'm not saying you should get married. I'm just reporting the trends. But I am seeing a change in the last, I'll say, 5 years. And I think this change, whether it's good or bad, is going back to more traditional values. Men, the whole physical fitness, that protection, the masculine ads that I'm seeing. I'm seeing that more. Men helping out but still being strong. Some of the media is coming out with that strong man figure that still loves and cares for his kids. You don't have to pick or choose either way. There's some men's rights advocacies. Give women equality. Yeah. And I actually believe in some ways women should get a little more. I mean, I'm not having babies. But then again, when somebody breaks in the house, I am the one that has to get up and fight them off, the bacon. And then just the whole, you can be strong, but still talk about your feelings. You don't have to cave in or be totally stoic. So I see some things. You know, one thing that I believe really points to a desire for a more masculine man? Yellowstone. Yellowstone. I remember when that came out, I came to Vegas, and Yellowstone was hot and heavy. We go out on the strip and down to Fremont. Half the men were dressed up like a character from Yellowstone. Brand new cowboy boots, you can tell. I mean, you could tell when boots are worn or they bought them just for that. But that desire to have that more masculine, rugged Marlboro man, or Rip, what's his name? But yeah, everybody had the beard and the hat, and look around and pause, do the smell the fart face, and yeah. So, there's an indicator. But here's the thing. Feminine, masculine, whatever your situation as a heterosexual male, welcome to the club. It's great. But just be a good person. If you have a family, take care of your family. If you are part of a family, take care of your family. Be loyal to the people you love, to your partner, your girlfriend, your boyfriend. And for God's sakes, stop with the man bun. Can we agree on that? The man bun is killing the heterosexual male. Thanks for joining. I appreciate the support. Hit me up at david@otalks.com or dave@otalks.com. YouTube, Spotify, Otalks Official on Instagram and TikTok. More coming. Thanks to Kira, my intern. She's doing a great job. I appreciate the support. I really do. Most of all, thanks for talking with Dave, and giddy up.